You're listening to Sustainably Geeky, the podcast for everyday environmentalists.
Hi, you're listening to Sustainably Geeky. I'm your host, Jennifer, and today I'm joined by Jen.
What's up, guys?
And our special guest is Steve Brown, president of Capital Assets. Steve is going to talk to us today about solar and energy efficiency. And his career started over 20 years ago in government relations and public affairs. He began at the White House as an intern in the Office of Legislative Affairs and has worked in a lot of different departments. He worked for U.S. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, and then for the Texas Medical Association. He's also worked for the American Heart Association, and after founding Capital Assets, a full-service public affairs firm that specializes in lobbying, issue campaigns, and public relations. So he's also very involved in a lot of different organizations, has worked with the Environmental Defense Fund and a lot of different nonprofits. So Steve, can you kind of, tell us a little bit more about your organization and what got you into the energy field?
Yeah, well, first, thank you all for having me on the podcast today. It is a delight to be able to share with you. So Capital Assets, as you mentioned, actually started out as a public affairs, lobbying, government affairs organization, kind of, dovetailing into my time and experience working at the Capitol and for elected officials in Texas. And so it was spelled Capitol, C-A-P-I-T-O-L, first, as in the state capitol. And then in 2014, I ran for Texas Railroad Commissioner, which is the agency that regulates the oil and gas industry, and had an awakening of sorts as it relates to the career trajectory that I wanted to take. I knew I didn't want to necessarily go back to the Capitol. The Capitol had become less fun over the last couple of sessions, primarily because of the quality of talent that has been attracted to that business. And the process of influencing people based on data and facts and science no longer exists the way in which I've been used to. So I took the experience, running statewide for a position that talked only about energy policies. And in that time, as you might remember, we were in the middle of a fracking boom in 2014. And with that fracking boom came unintended consequences as it relates to earthquakes in North Texas, as it relates to methane emissions in the Eagle Ford Shale, Permian Basin, as it relates to what to do with water and protecting our water resources, and then making sure that contaminated produced water didn't contaminate into streams that we need for drinking. And so I decided to shift then from a solely public affairs firm. I still do public affairs, but now the public affairs that I do is focused on the environment, it's focused on climate, it's focused on environmental justice on that side. And then in addition to that, we help to develop and finance clean energy projects throughout the state, which is, I think, what we'll probably be discussing quite a bit today on the podcast. But generally speaking, we look to finance projects that will produce energy savings, water savings, connect to a renewable source grid like solar, and allow for more people to have access to those resources than what exists today.
So you all primarily work in Texas, correct?
Yes, exclusively in Texas.
Okay. So the financing you're talking about, is that for individuals, businesses, both?
All of the above, actually.
Okay.
Projects that we've done have been for commercial properties or commercial property owners, industrial property owners, some small businesses. We're looking to grow into the residential market. We're looking to grow into more into the small business market, nonprofits. Though that's the market segment that I believe is being left behind in this energy transition. The companies like a Starbucks and an IKEA and those folks, they can make commitments to go 100% green, and they have the resources to be able to back that up. And the same could be said for affluent families. Families that are making over 100,000 a year, they have the resources to put solar on their roofs or to buy Tesla. But low-income communities, nonprofits, small businesses, they don't have those same resources. And quite frankly, they don't have the same access to capital that the other folks have. And so what will happen is that there will be a growing divide, a growing green energy divide between the haves and have-nots, just like with everything else. But if we don't do something about it now, that gap will only grow further and further. And the outcome of something like that would be the fact that if your affluent families and your big businesses are off the grid, so to speak, right? But yet the grid still exists, power plants still exist, they still need to be paid for. Well, who do you think will shoulder the burden of the cost that still need to be recouped? Well, it's going to be poor people, and they're the ones that can least afford it. And so there is damage that can be done if we're not lifting all the boats at the same time, as we make this transition to the future.
That's a great point. I think we're all realizing that the ones who cause the least damage are the ones that end up having to pay for it the most, and not just monetarily, but in every way. So that's great that that's a focus of yours, and that you guys are working to bring equity to that segment
Absolutely.
of society.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess let's start out by talking about solar, which is what you guys primarily work in, and kind of the benefits as an individual or as a business. How do I kind of go about getting solar, and why would I want to do that?
Well, obviously the cost of solar has dropped exponentially, say over the last 10 years or so. It's far cheaper to purchase solar for your rooftops or for your business than it was a while back, and those costs are continuing to drop. And we should see that continue to happen. On the utility scale, you see now that utility scale solar is comparable to natural gas as an energy source. Far outpaced coal. In fact, we beat coal a long time ago. I have no idea why we still burn coal in this world when there are cleaner, more affordable options on the table, right? But be that as it may, not only do you have the benefit of being able to purchase this resource more affordably now, but you also have the benefit of tax cuts that still exist for people who are looking to shed their tax burden, as well as in some places you have net metering, which allows you to get credit for any excess power that you generate from the solar system that on your rooftop, and sell that back to the grid and get a credit for that. In Texas, our net metering policies are not uniform, and so you as a buyer, you may not know from one region to the next whether or not your retail electric provider offers that as an option, which should be fixed. It's something that needs to be fixed in the state, not only in terms of making it uniform, but also in terms of allowing for virtual net metering to take effect as well. So what that is that basically, if the solar is not on your rooftop, but yet you're using it, say that there's a community solar system that you're paying into, that community solar system that is not on your rooftop, but yet you're still paying into it, you cannot use that for net metering either, right? And so that will be called virtual net metering. So between the ITC, which is the tax cut, the possibility of net metering, and there's still some counties throughout the state with some different rebates, kind of on a county by county basis. It makes a lot of sense. And lastly, if you're a homeowner, There's a lot of research that shows that having solar on your roof actually increases the value of your property, so that when you look to put it on the market, you'll be able to sell it at a higher price because of the solar on the rooftop.
Yeah, so there's a lot of great reasons to get solar. Are there any things other than, like you mentioned, the cost that might prevent someone from investing in solar? Because it does seem a little daunting, if you're a homeowner and you have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah, and that I would say that would be the first thing is the knowledge gap, and feeling comfortable enough to know that you are making a good deal, that the value of the system that you're installing will pay for itself at a rate that makes sense for your wallet. There are some programs that we can talk about later, particularly for small businesses or for businesses and industrial organizations and things of that nature. But there's programs that can allow for financing to take place with no money down, where the financing, that your cash flow will be cash flow positive from day one, because essentially what you're doing is that you're saving, and that saving is paying for the system itself. And so there are ways to structure a financing tool around solar, around energy efficiency, around you name it, where the savings that was associated with that improvement actually pays for the improvement. And I think that as folks become more and more aware that going green is actually feasible for them, that they will begin to look at those types of funding, those financing mechanisms, and be able to take advantage of them.
Yeah, you mentioned tax credits. Is that specifically state, or are there still federal tax credits?
Federal, yeah. The ITC was extended, if I'm not mistaken, in the last COVID bill,
Okay.
the last one that we've had, and even to that, as we look towards the future, looking at a stimulus package that I know that the Biden administration will like to put forth and get passed, has a great opportunity to continue to deploy these resources throughout the United States, particularly in areas where otherwise they might not have access to these resources.
Yeah, that's awesome that that those credits are available to folks. And if you don't live in Texas, you can always check your state as well to see if there's state incentives in addition to federal. So, well, one more thing before we move on. You mentioned, you can install this stuff on your home, your rooftop. If I'm going to an organization that does this professionally, is there a certification or something I need to look for so that I don't, pick somebody that doesn't know what they're doing?
Yeah, in most cases, in order to get the rebates, the utility itself probably has a pre-approved list of contractors, and you can go onto the utility's website to look up their energy efficiency or solar rebates. And with those, it will require that someone who's already been pre-screened by that utility has to do that work, because they know that those folks are qualified to be able to do the work. So it's on a kind of a regulatory entity by regulatory entity basis. But if you know who your utility is, then typically you can look on their website to find out, who some good contractors are.
Awesome.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So every time I log into my computer, I have the news feeds that pop up, and there's always one like almost every day, and it's like, don't pay for solar, you can basically get it installed for free kind of thing. And so my brain is always like, oh, that's a scam. And so I just don't read it, or I'll see it on Facebook, same thing. There's some sort of, it seems like an advertisement of some sort for a company. But can you talk to that at all?
Well, I can't speak to the exact company, obviously, but the fact that the cost of installing solar has dropped so exponentially, like I said before, is true. It's real, right? It does cost less. the rate of return and the return on your investment is a lot faster than it would have been 10 years ago, for instance. So those things are true. And then, the financing tools that are used vary. Kind of depends on your taste, right? And so we spoke of earlier about kind of a loan product where you might put some money down and then pay off the system over 10 years, 15 years, what have you. The useful life of these systems are probably about 25 to 30 years. So you'll definitely get your money's worth, from the system. That part of it is very much true. There are also lease agreements that someone might want to look into where you don't own the system, you're just leasing it. And so there's an agreed upon rate to which you're paying for that system. And typically the rate is set in a way that it is going to save you money. So you are going to pay less than what you're saving, right? And there are ways to kind of break down those numbers as well. And so between a loan, paying for it outright out of your own pocket, if you have $16,000, whatever laying around, a lease agreement where someone owns it, but yet you're paying for your usage of it, right? At a rate that is below what you would otherwise pay for energy, right? And then the other part of it, and just for your viewers, just so that your viewers know, my firm, although we work in this space, we are a finance firm. We just finance in this space, and so we have access to different financing tools to allow us to do this. And one of those tools is called PACE, or Property Assessed Clean Energy. It is a program that we have here in Texas, and I think in about 30 or so odd states in America that have the PACE program. Right now, PACE is only for commercial businesses, nonprofits, industrial firms, and it's not for new construction. It's not for single-family housing, right? And so because of that, I don't do a lot of financing for single-family homes. Although I would love to, and I'm hoping to develop something soon that can service that need. But PACE is unique in that it is a financing tool where you are allowed to receive financing for energy improvements, whether they're solar, energy efficiency, water conservation, resiliency measures as well. It requires that for every dollar you spend on this investment, you need to save at least $1 throughout the life of the investment, right? And so the loans can go from 10 years to 25 years in some cases, kind of matching the useful life of the equipment that's being installed, right? And so, but what makes it unique is that because you can stretch out payments that long, and you own the system, but because you can stretch out the payments for so long, you end up saving more money each year than you are paying back the loan. And with PACE, it's an annual repayment, and so the payments actually track your property taxes. And so when you get your property tax, bill in the mail in October, there will be a line item on there that says PACE financing, and you will pay that back when you pay back your property taxes. It's a really neat concept. I really do love it, and I wish that we could grow the PACE market in Texas a bit more. Right now, the big box malls and some of the ritzy new mixed development, redevelopment companies, they're taking advantage of it, but it has not penetrated down to the local level where more businesses are aware that it's out there. And if they did, I think that we would be able to make this green transition a lot faster and a lot easier through the access to this capital.
Great, thank you. Mm-hmm. Jen, did you have another question?
I was just going to say that I know you mentioned solar is, the cost has come down exponentially, but also I, hear that it's one of the fastest growing in not only installations, but also in jobs, and not just in the state of Texas, but across the country. And mm-hmm. I believe I heard that Texas is either first or second in solar. Second. Is that correct?
Second, yeah. We're number 2 And solar, I mean, we're really up there as it relates not just to solar, but also wind. Obviously, we are a leader in wind production and globally, actually. And then again, in terms of energy efficiency, and I can't stress this enough, that when we think about the green energy transition, that transition has to be extended to not just the renewables, which are great, but some of the low-hanging fruit of being able to switch out of HVAC with something that that you've had for 15 years and switching out something that is up to date and current and is a lot more energy efficient than what you have, from 15 years ago. Your LED lights, again, low-hanging fruit. Your windows indoors, the window installation and our window tinting, your doors, your installation. These are all easy ways to reduce energy consumption for a lot of families, for a lot of businesses. And if we could do that, that will eat into a huge chunk into the CO2 emissions that we're trying to get reduced now. If we're able to transition to energy efficiencies alone, would take a lot of that off the table and really work to reduce our CO2 emissions.
You're speaking Jen's language. She's all about LEED and getting
our
buildings nice and efficient. So Jen, did you want to go ahead and jump in?
Yeah, so I think we're just wondering, right now, what are some of the challenges we're facing to make the transition fully to renewable energy?
Yeah, I think one of the basic challenges, and I have to put on my public policy hat on a bit, but I think one of the basic challenges is an educated voter base. I think it is bad policymakers getting elected. I think oddly enough, I think extreme partisan gerrymandering is probably one of the biggest impediments to actually doing the right thing. And by that, I mean, we're going through a redistricting session this session. If not this session, it'll be a special session based on the new census count. And if we continue to draw districts whereby only the primary candidate, whoever wins the primary, wins the race, then we continue to elect people who aren't representing the entirety of the district anymore, because they don't have to compete for the other people. All they're competing is to be the most right or the most extreme in the race, in the contest. And so what you get out of that supply pool of the folks competing to be the most extreme are, the worst of your flat earthers, right? The folks who believe in conspiracy theories, the folks who don't understand growth and opportunity, the folks who prefer, that we go back to coal and go back to older brown energy sources, right?
The cave people. Citizens against virtually everything. Cave people.
There you go. Exactly. And so I think part of it is improving our democracy. I think that is the biggest impediment. Because our democracy has suffered mightily over the last 10 years, and I think there is a definitive clock that started in 2008, but it took effect in 2011, when a ton of people across the country who were not qualified for the positions that they ran for got elected and were in control of drawing the map to get themselves reelected. Right? That was the worst thing that could have happened. And it feeds on this sense that that people on the fringe have the power to elect people to office. And then the French people get even more empowered to the point where, they believe that they can elect the president. And guess what? They did in 2016. And the first thing that president did was take us out of the Paris Accord, right? And so these things all play together. And so I think that we have to stop picking our elected officials the way we pick, the pro wrestlers that we support or root against, and look to pick people based on having a core competency that matches the positions that they're running for. I think once we do that, we can get people in place that can see an opportunity in how Texas and the country can lead the world in clean energy production, which also will help us to lead the world in clean energy innovation, technology, jobs, economy. All those things are tied into a lot of, how we choose to pick the leaders to vote on those policies and to develop those policies.
Yes to all that.
And we could have a whole other discussion about politics, but I'm going to try to keep us focused here. So in addition to policy changes and, politics, what would it physically take to fully transition off of fossil fuels, and how long do you think that would take?
I think that there are a lot of models out there that posit that you could do it, by 2050. And again, I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that's out there that can get done. And so, between now and 2050, is it feasible to totally take us off of fossil fuels? Perhaps. I think that there's some deep decarbonization that can take place, but it's going to be a lot harder, for instance, to figure out how to fly planes using renewable energy sources, as opposed to, how to make sure that every building in America has LED lights, right? And so, the hard stuff is the hard stuff for a reason. And, that's going to be about 15 to 20% of the pie of how we get there from here. But as we figure that out, we can also, in the meantime, knock out the 80% of the things that we know are the easy things, decommissioning coal plants and replacing them with all the utility scale solar and wind that's already in queue here in Texas in the ERCOT system, but throughout the country. Those plants are ready to take on the capacity of what's being left behind when we decommission coal. Electric vehicles. GM announced recently that they plan to be 100%, electric by, I think, 2035 or something like that. So, that's the low-hanging fruit that we can do between now and 2035. I think the tougher stuff is going to take a little bit more capital investment. It's going to take a little bit more ingenuity, creativity, and hopefully we can still get those things done by 2050 as well.
Yeah, it's a huge infrastructure investment to switch, to renewable energy, but we've done it before. I mean, we had to move to an electric system, and we, at one time used gas and in other forms of energy. So it's not like we can't do it. It's going to be challenging, but we have to. We really don't have a choice, and we've got to figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah, and we have to, but it's not a bad thing. It's really. It's something that, could bring about a great deal of prosperity to a lot of families. It could bring about better public health to our communities. It could reduce the number of days that our kids are sick with asthma and are away from school, and allow for our children to be more productive, our families to be more productive. I mean, it's really, it's difficult, and we've made switches like this before. But this is actually a switch that has a lot more benefits to it than the risk or the cost associated with it.
Yeah, a lot of times people only want to see the upfront cost, but they don't think about the long-term savings. And
yeah, exactly. I know, here in Houston we have a 100-year flood every 5 years, and so just imagine if that weren't the case, how much money could be saved in insurance claims. Because we're not dealing with these massive climate events so often.
Yep.
So we're all going to get Hummers that are electric vehicles.
Someday.
Is that the plan? Is that our future in Texas? Because they don't want to give up their big trucks.
Hey, Texas, we have different culture, and I would say that one of the reasons that it's been difficult for us to seriously, advance financial tools to help make this transition is because culturally it's different for us. It's going to take some time, it's going to take some education, I think the early adopters have already begun to make the transition, to make the switch. I believe that there is a tipping point on the horizon, even for Texas, and I think that tipping point might be more economically driven than environmentally conscious or social impact driven. But whatever the case may be, I think that tipping point is on the horizon, and that we will still get there.
Let's hope it's sooner.
Yeah. So is there anything else that consumers can do to help influence and assist in this process of switching from fossil fuel to renewables?
Yes. In addition to voting for climate friendly elected officials and candidates, I think that we all have a role to know better where our power is coming from, and to know whether or not there are renewable options within our different plans that we purchase for our homes. We should also research, the companies that we do business with, and find out, what their commitments are, and spend our money where people are mirroring our values as a people who are ready and hungry to make this climate transition a reality. And begin to punish companies that seem to be stuck in the mud and are unwilling to make that transition. And so that knowledge is important, and it's available. But I think it's important for us as consumers to buy products and to buy from companies that have a commitment to social equity and climate action. As well as putting pressure on investors, on the investor community. I think that if investors are putting money into fossil fuel energy sources, I think that we should put pressure on them as well, and let them know that that's not acceptable. That they should be investing in clean energy as well, so that we can do those tough things, because there's capital in the pipeline, in the system, to help fund the research that's needed to make those tough things, to find solutions for those tough problems.
We need to develop our own Reddit community and hijack the stock market.
Maybe. I would definitely be into it. I know I bought stock in GM as soon as I heard the news about them transferring to all EV by 2035. That instantly got my money. And so, whenever companies decide, and I'm not a big player, I just use Cash App to send money around. But as soon as I hear a company say that they're willing to make a commitment to green, to sustainability, they are going to likely, get a couple of my coins as a result of that.
Yeah, and the more demand we place on the market, the more likely it is they'll keep doing it. So
absolutely. We want to reward the good actors, for sure.
We're going to add that to our list of things we have to do.
Right.
We're going to get on the Reddit app and start making things happen.
That's right.
Yeah, and if listeners are interested in learning a little bit more about divestment from fossil fuels, we actually did an episode on that a couple months ago, so you can check that out to kind of learn a little bit more about, how we as consumers can affect that and how businesses can. Jen, did you have any other questions or thoughts?
I don't. I just want to thank you for everything that you're doing. I think it's wonderful, and we need more of it in this world. So keep going.
Great, my pleasure. It's a pleasure to be able to do something that's mission driven, and that can also sustain my family and our lifestyle here. So it's a win-win.
It's great really work.
Yeah, thank you.
It's rewarding.
Thank you much.
I just wanted to jump back real quick to when we were talking about, transitioning to solar and other types of renewable. I think a lot of people have anxiety over, what if the sun's not shining? What happens then? So can you talk a little bit about battery storage and how that's going to play a major role in the transition?
Yeah, I believe the battery storage is going to be a game changer as it relates to modernizing our electric grid, both in Texas as well as nationally. I think that once you have a tool in place such that, for instance, if the sun's not out, but the wind is blowing, like the wind is blowing at night, the sun is out in the day, those energy sources are fast at work. But what happens when there's excess power generated from those and neither one of those things is happening, right? And so I will say that not only are the solar panels getting cheaper, but they're getting better as well, right? And so before, foggy day or dense day, you might not get quite any production out of the panels. Now you'll get more than before, right? And so as we're making the improvements to the technologies themselves, we'll find that the production of particularly solar panels will continue to improve, right? But in between though, which is kind of where the coal market sits, right? So on those really peak hot days in the summer and the grid's at capacity, you turn those coal units and you're able to kind of supplement some of the power needs with that energy. I think that battery technology is going to have the impact of being able to use the stored energy in the technology and be able to deploy it on the grid such that it's able to sustain some of the capacity issues from the peak usage times, particularly for like in Texas in the summer months as well. So I do believe that's going to be a game changer, not just for on the utility scale, but also in communities as well. One of the major energy insecurities in low-income areas is power going out, right? And the impact on those households when their food goes bad, or when those houses aren't able to function because the power went out because of a storm of some sort. And so getting to a point where communities as a whole can pull the resources together and have a battery technology system, say it's located at the church in the community or the community center or something like that, but having that technology kick in when the power goes out because of a bad storm, that could be a life-saving opportunity for families throughout our areas. And so I think the world of batteries. I'm not in the battery financing model business, and so I'm still not sure what the price points are and how to correctly price out that resource. But someone will figure it out and they'll tell me, and I'll go from there. But do be on the lookout for a lot more advancements as it relates to batteries. And like solar, the cost of batteries are going down too. And I think that is a big part of it as well. I think there can be a price point where the cost is low enough where battery technology can be deployed more often and in more places.
And it's getting more efficient, like solar panels. So
yeah, exactly.
Makes it more useful.
Exactly. Well, we'll hit an equilibrium there pretty soon, I believe.
Yeah. Any new technology is going to take a while to kind of even out, I guess. So I think we're getting to that point, though. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, I really love what you said about just the leadership that we have or lack of leadership that we have in this area. And I think it's really, a symptom of scientific literacy going away. There's a lot of fear of science now for some reason. And it's scary that, that the general public and that a lot of our elected officials don't take it seriously. So I think it's great that you guys are doing this work. And, hopefully, like you said, we can get some people in office, we can get rid of voter apathy and kind of get people to realize how important this stuff is. So
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
We have a new administration now. Things are getting better.
Amen. Amen. It only took 81 million votes to get there, and which is kind of the scary part of that. It took a lot of work to get there in the face of someone who should not have been there to begin with, which kind of speaks to the dilemma that we're in, and the need to educate on science, on math, and letting facts prevail in this world.
Yeah. Let's hope we can keep it up.
Yeah.
I will say that even if our elected officials don't seem to always take this seriously, the government itself has implemented a lot of, green practices, and we're, right next to Fort Hood, and Jen can talk to this more than me, but they've, installed, like 10 football fields worth of solar panels, and they use a lot of wind power as well. So parts of the government are actually implementing renewable energy, which is promising.
Yeah, and that's I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, for them, it just made financial sense to do it. Even if there wasn't any kind of environmental factor, sometimes greenwashing can come into play for a lot of industry or, businesses, but for the longest time, they just, Fort Hood specifically didn't want to buy into solar because financially, just at the time, years ago, it didn't make sense to do it. But when, like you said, the cost went down, they crunched the numbers, and they were able to they didn't even have to buy it outright. They, like you said, they're just leasing it. And so they're paying less than they were before per kilowatt hour. So it's just, we're getting there, right? Costs are coming down, and it's becoming competitive with fossil fuel prices. And so it's just a matter of time before we can fully make the transition.
Absolutely. And again, the goal is to make sure that everyone is making the transition at the same time. And that's really, I think we should always remain vigilant in ensuring that as we continue to deploy more of these resources and adopt them for businesses, for governments, for what have you, that we're not leaving people out, particularly those who are on the front lines of air pollution, on the front lines of water pollution. The folks who are impacted the most by CO2 emissions are the ones with the least amount of resources to be able to do anything about it. And so we want to make sure that the resources are accessible for all communities.
Definitely.
Amen.
Well, Steve, is there anything we didn't talk about that you'd want to mention, or any resources you'd share with our listeners that want to learn more?
Yeah, I think we covered a lot, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you about this issue, which is my life's work and passion. But I would say that if your viewers want to track and follow any organizations that are doing this work or similar work, I would definitely refer the Texas Energy Poverty Research Institute, and look them up on Google, follow them on Twitter. They're a great resource. And here in Houston, there's HARP, the Houston Advanced Research Center, and they do a lot of good research and stuff. So follow them as well. They also have a series of webinars and podcasts where you can learn more about the stuff that we're talking about.
Great. Well, with that, I guess we'll go ahead and move on to our green life hacks, where we give our listeners something that they can do or a product that they can try to live more sustainably. So Steve, do you want to start us out?
Yeah, I will start out with my car. Now, I do not have a fancy Tesla or anything like that yet. I am working my way to that. But my bridge car is a hybrid, and it's a Lincoln hybrid MKZ, and it's really cool because it gives you real-time information on how much of the battery you're using, how much of the battery you're not using. When I brake, I'm able to charge my battery while I brake. And it's a really, really neat feature. And so I say all that to say that I've completely changed my driving habits based on looking at the screen to see how well I do on all these different measurements. And at the end of my, whenever I park the car, it tells me how well I drove, while the car was turned on. And so it's a really cool thing. It's completely changed the way I drive now. And when I'm in different cars, I'm still thinking about, my braking and my acceleration and all this other cool stuff.
That's pretty neat. Yeah, these new cars can do some amazing things, and
yeah,
I'm looking forward to when I upgrade to a hybrid or an EV someday. Jen, what is your green life hack for this month?
Yeah, I have so many that I want to share, but I'm gonna just keep these for the next month's ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would just say what's on my mind right now is to just buy less. Like, we're in such a cycle of like keeping up with the Joneses and feeling like, I need to have this new outfit, or I need to have this new car, or I need the bigger house and all these things. So really just kind of like take a minute and really question, like, before you make a purchase, like if it is an actual thing that you actually need physically to survive versus just something that you want so that it's like part of your status or whatever, ego, I don't know. Because eventually you're going to have to get rid of it or throw it away, whatever that item might be. So just pay attention to that. That's all I got.
That's a good one. Buy less. Well, mine is in keeping with the theme of energy efficiency. And I hope I haven't done this one already, but just unplugging things that you're not using. There's a lot of things that use residual energy even when they're not turned on. So those energy vampires can kind of add up and not only, use energy, but, your electric bill goes up because of that. So, turn off things or unplug them. I keep my television and all that stuff turned off because there's just so many lights and everything that go with it. So that's my suggestion for the month, and it's a pretty easy one to help you save a little money. Steve, where can we find you and or your organization online?
Yeah, you can find me at, what is it, Steve Brown TX is my Twitter and Instagram handles, I guess is what you call them. But yeah, Steve Brown TX, and as I say that, I am checking. Yep, that's it. That's right. That is me. So yes, on Twitter, Instagram, find me there. Facebook, I have my political page that I never deactivated, as well as my personal page. But I believe I'm just Steve Brown Fort Bend on my political page. So if I start to see people joining that page, I promise to post more. I've kind of I've fallen off on using that page, but if folks are interested in learning more, I'll definitely post more.
Great. And Capital Assets, is that on all your social media sites? And
yeah, and LinkedIn. If you find me on LinkedIn, I believe the same Steve Brown TX is my handle on LinkedIn as well. You'll be able to get information about Capital Assets too.
Okay, great. Is there a website you want to plug for the organization?
Yeah, it's capcleanenergy.com, capcleanenergy.com.
Great. Yeah, so check them out, learn more, and see how you can get involved in the movement.
And my email address is just sbrown@capcleanenergy.com. So if you have any questions about anything that you heard tonight, feel free to just email me. I would love to visit with you.
Great. Thank you for that. Jen, where can we find you online? Anywhere?
You can find me here at Sustainably Geeky.
This has become our running joke. She's not active on much of the social media stuff.
I try to unplug as much as possible because I'm literally like on my computer for 10 hours a day. So it's like, I don't want to do anything on my free time that has to deal with being plugged in.
I understand.
Well, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Het's Gonna Be Me, and you can find the show at Sustainably Geeky on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also go to epicallygeeky.com/sustainably-geeky. And of course, we're on all of the podcast sites. So please check us out wherever you listen to podcasts. On iTunes, you can give us a 5-star rating if you like the show and subscribe. Helps us move up on the the list of shows that they show people. And if you guys ever have any questions, reach out to us with questions or topic suggestions. Steve, thanks again for being on. We really enjoyed the talk, and I know I learned a lot. So
great, thanks for having me.
Yeah. And to everyone listening, have a great rest of your day.